This is AG ASMR, and straight away some of you may notice that or hopefully you'll notice that the quality of sound is a little bit nicer today, and that's because I have a new microphone, which I'm very, very excited about. Now, I am still playing around with it, but I'm by no means an audio engineer or anything of the sort, but I am excited to have a play around with it. I have fiddled with it a little bit, trying to do my best to make it better for ASMR, or what I think will be better for ASMR. But please let me know down below if you like it, because as I say, I'm like a kid in a candy store with this thing. I think it's the first time I've ever had a proper microphone, so yeah. But with that said, I'll not blabber on about that for too long. Today we are going to be exploring some more League of Legends lore. We have done this a few times before. A few years ago I did a Yasuo video when the lore was in its old sort of form, and now, I think it was about a few weeks ago now, we read the lore of Vi. So I thought today, in a sort of related case, we will look at the lore of Jinx, who is Vi's sister in this story. So we're on the League of Legends universe here, so we're going to go into champions, and then we are going to scroll down, here are all the champions, and here we go, Jinx. It's actually interesting, Jinx was the first champion that was released as a new character when I was playing. So when I started, she was the newest champion that came out. Okay, so this is the story of Jinx. So strap in, sit down, lie down, and try and relax to the sound of my voice. Okay, let's go. While most look at Jinx and see only a mad woman wielding an array of dangerous weapons, a few remember her as a relatively innocent girl from Zorn, a tinkerer with big ideas who never quite fit in. No one knows for certain what happened to turn that sweet young child into a wild card, infamous for her wanton acts of destruction. But once Jinx exploded onto the scene in Piltover, her unique talent for sowing anarchy, instantly became the stuff of legend. Jinx first gained notoriety through her anonymous pranks on the citizens of Piltover, particularly those with connections to the wealthy merchant clans. These pranks ranged from the moderately annoying to the criminally dangerous. She blocked streets on Progress Day with a stampede of exotic animals freed from Count May's menagerie. She disrupted trade for weeks when she lined the city's iconic bridges with adorably destructive flame jumpers. Once, she even managed to move every street sign in town to new and utterly confusing locations. Though this unknown troublemaker's target seemed random, and her motivation nothing more than pure chaos, her actions always served to bring the city's orderly bustle to a screeching halt. Naturally, the wardens attributed some of her crimes to campunk gangs from the Undercity. Having others get credit for her manic schemes didn't sit well with Jinx, and so she made sure to make her presence known at every future crime scene. Rumours soon circulated of the mysterious, blue-haired Zornite girl carrying chemtech explosives, a shark-mouthed rocket Jinx's reputation grew, leaving the people of Zorn divided as to whether she was a hero for sticking it to the arrogant Pilties, or a dangerous lunatic for escalating existing tensions between their two cities. After months of ever-increasing carnage, Jinx unveiled her biggest plan yet. In her trademark electric pink, Jinx daubed the walls of the Ecliptic Vaults, one of Piltover's most secure treasuries, with a very unflattering caricature of Enforcer Vi, and the details of her own intention to rob the stores within. An uneasy sense of anticipation settled on Piltover and Zorn leading up to the promised date of the heist. Many doubted even Jinx would have the guts to show up and risk almost certain capture. When the day arrived, Vi, Sheriff Caitlin, and the Wardens prepared a trap for Jinx outside the treasury, but Jinx had already smuggled herself inside by way of an oversized coin crate that had been delivered days before. When Vi heard pandemonium erupt from inside the structure, she knew the Wardens had been outclassed once again. She burst into the treasury, and the ensuing confrontation left the Ecliptic Vaults a smouldering ruin, and the merry mischief-maker Jinx nowhere to be found. Jinx remains at large to this day, and it is a constant thorn in Piltover's side. Her schemes have inspired copycat crimes among the Chempunks, as well as numerous satirical plays lampooning the incompetence of the Wardens, and even a smattering of new colloquialisms throughout both cities, though no one has yet had the courage to call Enforcer Vi pretty in pink to her face. Jinx's ultimate endgame and her obvious obsession with Vi both remain a mystery, but one thing is certain: her crimes are continuing and growing in sheer audacity. Okay, so that was, I believe it's called a biography. It's like a little backstory. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but yeah, I'm very impressed with Riot Games with how they've deepened the lore. We played a little bit of Legends of Runeterra the other day on the channel, and really enjoyed that, and I have been continuing to enjoy that game in my own time. So once again, if you want to see me play that, then let me know. But okay, let's explore one of Jinx's stories, which is called The Wedding Crasher. Okay. The Wedding Crasher. Jinx hated petticoats, corsets too, but she grinned at how she'd put the space under and within the stolen dress to good use. Her long blue braids were concealed beneath a ridiculous feathered bonnet that was the latest fashion in Piltover. Jinx sashayed between the wedding guests, keeping her smile fixed and trying not to scream at the dead-eyed people surrounding her. It took an effort of will not to grab each one by the shoulder and try to shake them awake. Jinx had come here to get all explodey on the observatory at Top Count Sandvik's mansion, but when she'd seen there was a wedding underway, well, that was too good an opportunity for mayhem to pass it up. The Count had spared no expense in making his daughter's party a grand spectacle. The cream of Piltover society was here. The heads of the major clans, Lord Hextech, Artificers, and even Fat Nicodemus had managed to finagle an invite. The warden prefect looked like an overstuffed Poro in his dress uniform, chest puffed out and beady eyes ogling at the sprawling buffet table. Music from a small orchestra drifted over the wedding guests, so slow and ponderous, it made Jinx want to yawn. She'd take the foot stomping, spin around till it made you sick music of Zorn, sneer at her coarseness, and Jinx covered her mouth in mock, wide-eyed embarrassment. "Sorry, I accidentally did that on purpose." She skipped on and helped herself to some weird-looking fish things from another waiter's platter. She tossed them into the air and managed to catch at least one in her mouth. A few fell into her enhanced cleavage, and she plucked them out with the glee of a sump scrapper who'd found something shiny in the ooze. "You thought you could get away from me, fishy fishes," she said, wagging a finger at each morsel. "Well, you were wrong." Jinx stuffed the food into her mouth and readjusted her dress. She wasn't used to this much up top, and stifled a giggle at what she'd stuffed down there. The hairs on the back of her neck bristled, and she looked up to see a man staring at her from the edge of the chamber. He was good-looking in a stiff sort of way and wore nice formal clothes, but was so obviously a warden that he might as well have had a sign around his neck. She turned and pushed deeper into the throng of guests, filling the chamber. She reached the buffet table and sucked in an impressed breath as she saw the towering wedding cake, a frosted masterwork of pink fondant, whipped cream, and lacework caramel, a replica of the tower of tecmaturgy and sponge jam and sweet pastry. Jinx reached out, lifted a ladle from the punch bowl, and scooped out a cave in the sponge. She dipped it out onto the floor, licked the ladle clean, and tossed it back onto the table. She saw a number of guests looking at her funny and bared her teeth in her best manic grin. Maybe they thought she was mad. Maybe they were right. Jinx shrugged. Whatever. She reached down into her décolletage and pulled out 4 chompers. She stuffed 3 deep into the hole she'd scooped in the cake and dropped the other into a punch bowl. Jinx strolled along the length of the table, pulling out another 2 chompers and depositing them in various dishes. One went in a copper soup tureen, the other replaced the apple in the mouth of a suckling pig. Her dress was a lot looser without the additional baggage upstairs, and as she pulled down the zipper, Jinx spotted the good-looking man she'd earlier pegged as a warden, making a beeline for her through the guests. "About time," she said, spotting another 4 gussied-up wardens, 3 women and a man converging on her. "Oh, and you brought friends too." Jinx reached around to the small of her back and pulled the knot securing the petticoats around her narrow waist. The bottom half of her dress sank to the floor as her corset fell away to surprised gasps of the men and women around her. Revealed in her pink leggings, ammo-belted shorts and vest top, Jinx ripped off the bonnet and shook her hair loose. She reached down and swung fish bones up from where it had been concealed beneath her dress and hoisted the weapon up to her shoulder. "Hey folks," she yelled, leaping onto the buffet table and drawing Zappa from her thigh holster. "Hope you're all hungry." Jinx spun on her heel and fired a crackling bolt of energy down the table to the chomper in the pig's mouth, because this buffet is to die for. The chomper exploded, draping the nearby guest in ribbons of scorched meat and fat. A chain of detonations followed, the tureen blasted into the air to drench scores of guests in hot beef soup. The punch bowl blew up next, and the climax of the detonations, the wedding cake. The 3 chompers inside detonated simultaneously, and the towering confection launched into the air like a rocket. It almost reached the stained glass ceiling before it arced over and nosedived back to the floor. Guests scattered as the giant cake exploded on impact, and fondant fragments flew crash